Hey guys, how you doing? It's Brad with ATRE Podcast.com, all things real estate. I have the most incredible guest here today. Her name is Christina Carrillo. Now, Christy started out in real estate at the age of 19. Now, she's a mom of two. She was documented on one of the first reality TV shows for flipping homes, and she was on it for 3 years. Flip That House on TLC. Now, she's been in leadership roles for the last 6 years. She has been assistant team leader, regional expansion director, director of operations, a coach, a team leader, and she is CEO of KW in Silicon Beach and Marina del Rey. Christy is heavily involved with her local association, board of directors, secretary, and YPN chair. She has done everything from rehabbing homes full-time to specializing in private money and REO properties, traditional sales, as well as luxury homes. Christy is writing her own life story in a book. Christy says her life story is beyond crazy, and she'd also like to pursue public speaking. Yeah. Welcome, Christy. That's really, really impressive.
Thank you so much. You make me sound great, Brad. I appreciate that.
You're amazing.
That was a great intro. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here today. It's really a pleasure to have you.
Appreciate it.
Christy, COVID was crazy for all of us and it was scary and we didn't quite know what to do. How did COVID affect your real estate business and the way you did business in 2020 and the beginning of 2021?
That's a great question. I would have to say at first, March of 2020, I definitely took, I want to say 30 days to kind of reflect and feel like, okay, what's happening? What could happen? Kind of, that uncertainty wasn't a good feeling for me either. But I think at the end of the day, what I've done best in my life is constantly pivot and just realize there's always tomorrow. The world's not ending, no matter how horrible it was. And so it was pivoting and realizing, okay, we have to adjust what we're doing. So in my coaching business too, and in leadership, I was really pushing that to agents too. Obviously, if you can't do open house or you can't door knock and you can't take clients out to lunch, and I'm a recruiter, so I couldn't get face to face with people either. You had to really figure out ways to stay connected with people through Zoom, right? Through phone calls more to just more of those human touches. I feel like even though it wasn't face to face, it felt more personable because it made you reach out more. So it was just realizing that pivoting is everything in business constantly.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad to see you were so successful at it.
Thank you.
What is a team leader?
Team leader means I'm basically the team leader for the franchise. So it's my job to overlook the operations, but also to focus on growth. So whether that's recruiting new agents into the franchise or growing from within, it's focusing on growth for the franchise.
Excellent. And Christy, where do you see real estate headed?
I think we're going to have a shift, a big shift. And I don't say it in a way where people get scared. They're like, oh, it's not going to be 2008. I loved 2008. It was a great time for me.
I did REOs too. I get it.
Yeah. I got in with asset managers. It was fantastic. But I think people get scared instead of realizing that you just pivot, that it's the same thing, whether it's an up or down market, there's huge opportunity. So I think that it needs a correction. It's being artificially sustained right now. Right. So I think I think maybe 6 months, maybe less. I could be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball, but my gut says that it can't continue at the pace that it is. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're right. I think that there will be a definite shift. I don't know if it's going to be as soon as 3 to 6 months, only because with the government printing money the way they are. I remember 2008.
Shady bastards.
Yeah. And in 2008, we started hearing a lot about, zero down and, no FICO, no social security number. As we start to hear more of those crazy loans come out, I think we might be 9 months to a year, but who knows,
You might be right. I just tell people though, not to be fearful of it. To watch
the market. Be in it for a while, it doesn't matter. It's a great time to buy if you're going to be in it for 5 to 10 years. You're going to do okay. If you're not, then you might
don't buy then. Right. Buying at the peak of the market. It's crazy.
That's right. And I talk to my clients about that, and I try to consult with them all the time about that. And I also tell new agents, I'm a coach as well, and I tell them all the time. I say, look, by the time you're ready to start pivoting, it's going to have changed. So you need to figure out right now what your plan B is. Are you contacting banks? Are you in with asset managers? For the past 4 years, I've been going to foreclosure conferences every year.
Right.
And everyone goes, why are you doing that? I go, because by the time you're ready to, I'll already be in and they won't be taking any agents.
So true. So true.
Those days.
And everybody that I know that has been in the business longer than, 10, 15 years from whenever that did happen, they're all reinforcing their REO section. They're all getting their short sale managers on board. They're all doing things right now.
Well, you have to. You've got to be ready for it. When it drops, it drops. So
yeah, very true.
Christy, what is special about you and your management skills?
I'm a connector, so I'm really, really good at honing in on somebody's strengths and making them feel like they can conquer the world, and kind of giving somebody that extra belief when they don't see it in themselves. And then they get a little taste of it and it kind of propels them forward. So for me, my strength is definitely the ability to inspire other people and have them see things in themselves that they didn't see.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that. That's when you bring out the best in someone, it's the best gift you can give someone, right?
And to change their perspective on life. A lot of people, especially when we're in a business of no's, they get down on themselves, they get down on their views, and it affects everything around you. Kind of like what you focus on expands. So whenever you can help them kind of get control of their mindset and see things from a different perspective, it helps them take that next step.
Yeah, I used to practice no's and objections, and I would tell I tell the people I coach, I loved no's. No's brought me one step closer to a yes.
Yeah.
And you got to hear a lot of no's to get that yes, and that yes feels so good.
Yes, and a no just means maybe no right now. It doesn't mean no forever. Yeah.
Listen, you got to take it. This world of instant gratification needs to stop, and you got to work hard for what you do.
I'll tell you a funny thing. I just finally recruited an agent that I've been chasing for 5 years. So I relate to you said instant gratification. Nothing in this business, in my opinion, at least, is instant gratification, right? Unless for some reason something just happens to fall in your lap, which it doesn't happen like that very often. But I chased an agent for 5 years, and he finally came to my office, right. And it was such a good feeling because I literally never gave up on this person. Yeah.
And you didn't give up on yourself.
Yeah, of course not. Never.
Which is even better, right? Christy, how should an agent be preparing right now for the second half of 2021 to have a successful second half?
I'd say scale back your business as far as your budgeting. Look at where you're spending money that you're not getting a return on, and put money away. A lot of agents don't save for a rainy day. They get their money and they spend it. So I think really you've got to look at your business plan and say, okay, is the money going in the right direction? Where you're not getting a return, cut it off. Yeah. We're known for always buying the next shiny object or those leads that really we're not converting or staying consistent with anyways, right? So I would say just really cut back your expenses and save money, put money away. And then in my personal opinion too, I would say probably focus on things that they believe the market's going to be doing in the future, kind of like what we were just saying, realizing that this isn't going to last forever. It's not going to be a hot market, right? So what systems and tools do you have to help buyers, sellers, short sales, foreclosures, those things? And are you knowledgeable? Because I think a lot of agents that have been in this for the last even 10 years, they know nothing about short sales or foreclosures.
Right.
And I think taking the time to educate themselves is a big.
And I think you're right. I think that was a great point. And I remember I knew enough to know I didn't know enough in 2008, right? So I hired a short sale manager. I had someone who did all of my short sales. Who for me, I didn't have to worry about any of it. The negotiating, I'd rather give someone 30%.
Right.
Than worry about.
Then mess up, right, and do it wrong. But in all honesty too, I think it's not that complicated when you really think about it. And I will say this, I think that side of the business is so much more fascinating and fun. Yeah. And it's going to weed out a lot of these agents that have been in that easy market where it's not that difficult to make decent money. And when you actually have to get into the business, work, stay consistent, provide value, treat it like an actual business, it's going to weed out a lot of the agents that have been flooding the market that really aren't treating it like a true career anyways.
Yeah. Christy, I remember, and I don't know if you were in the business then, but so I've been in the business since 1997.
Yeah.
And I think you've been in for 17 years, right?
Yeah. So I got in 03, 04.
Yeah. Good market then too, but
yeah.
then you lived through the downside. I'll tell
the
you.
Downside, I thrived. I loved it.
Well, so for someone like me, in 2008, I had twin 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of money in the bank that I saved.
Yeah.
Burned through it in 6 months because I went from making, a lot of money to still a really good living in most areas, but
right.
I was living with the Joneses, trying to keep up. And I remember sitting in my car crying and going, what am I going to do? And that's when I said, you know what, Brad, you're going to get off your ass. You're going to start calling asset managers. You're going to take them to lunch because then you could.
Right.
And you're going to do the things that you need to do to build relationships.
Right.
And I started doing foreclosures and short sales, and I pulled myself out of it.
Yeah.
And that's where the grit came from. And I wouldn't give that back. I
right.
learned a lot.
Right.
A lot. And
the relationships are everything. And I have agents ask me all the time, well, how do you get in with an asset manager? I go, it's the same way you court sellers and you court other clients. You just focus on that area of the business. Yeah. So it's yeah. And I think it's important too, the agents need to remember, don't go broke trying to look.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like keeping up with the Joneses, kind of,
all of these
live above your means,
And not only that, all of these, lead generation companies that are calling and doing, if you just invested in yourself,
right?
Everywhere you go, just talking to people, everyone says, "Oh, you're in real estate?" I just go, "Yeah, I am." Why? You interested in buying? You're interested in selling? Ask the question. If you ask the uncomfortable question, you will be shocked with the answers that you get.
Very true. Very true. But what I see more and more common these days is people are afraid to talk to people. It's the weirdest thing. I tell people all the time, first thing I ask whenever I'm recruiting agents is if they're very clear on the business model that they're entering into. Like, do you know this is a lead generation business? A lot of people just think, oh, I want to sell homes, and it's like, well, wait, it's a lead generation, communication, relationship business. And if you're afraid to talk to people, if you're afraid to ask for business, if you're afraid to have those conversations, you're going to really struggle.
And it's all about structure anyway. You have to plan. I mean, I go to the gym every day. I have the gym in my appointment book. I know
right.
That's a special time. What's an average morning for you, Christy?
I usually wake up, I want to say between 5:30. I'm not a snooze bitch very often, unless it's a weekend. I even have on my alarm, when my alarm goes off, it says, don't be a snooze bitch. That's part of keeping your word to yourself, right? But usually 5:30, I'm up. I do morning workouts instead of the evening, because if I put it out in the evening, I'm just one of those people, I won't do it.
Me too.
Right. So I'm usually at the gym by 6:30, do 45 minutes, come back. I've got 2 kids that are self-sufficient now, so I don't really have to get them ready anymore, which is great. And then by the time I'm in the car by 8 o'clock commuting to the office, and I usually use that hour for phone calls and all that stuff. So my morning is simple.
I love it. And I've been stalking you a little on Instagram because I knew we were going to have this. And I see that you've been putting pictures up of yourself at the gym. And you said a couple of weeks ago, you said, I would have never put this picture up 5 years ago. And I was really intimidated to be in the free weights. And you look great. And you look like you really are in great shape and that you're enjoying yourself.
Thanks. I'm not overweight, but I'm not in shape. So there's a big difference, right? A lot of people like, oh, you're thin, so you're in shape. And it's not the case. But I definitely hired a trainer. I hired a coach to keep to get myself out of my comfort zone. Right. And it's been amazing because I definitely want to build up some muscle, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So it's been fun.
So Christy, tell me about, if you wouldn't mind, you said that your life is a movie. And that it's been unbelievable. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe your personal struggles or what you're speaking about when you say how crazy your life has been?
Sure. I have no problem being transparent and vulnerable. I share everything now, kind of like an open book, right? Yeah, my life story is just a little all over the place. Was sexually exploited as a child by my mother. Never went to school, kept out of school, lived in about 20 different cities by the time I was 15. emancipated at 15, was married at 16. Just a very, my upbringing was much like a cult environment where it was a lot of manipulation, a lot of just toxic bad stuff.
Right.
Lived on and off of a Native American reservation, which was really cool experience too. And I never really had a childhood. I was kind of always around adults and business. My mom was I guess you can call it a professional scam artist.
Wow.
And these were large scams. They weren't minor scams. A lot of famous people, high profile people were involved, and just exposed to a lot at a very young age. So divorcing my family as a child still myself was hard to do, but I've had a very positive view on life. Even as a kid, I never had that view of like, oh, poor me, this is horrible. I've always had a view of like, I love people, I love the world, this isn't my life. Even when it was bad, I was like, this is all temporary, this isn't my life. And so I've never allowed it to really define who I was. And there were some thoughts that I had in my mind, like, oh, my life is going to be a struggle because I never went to school, I was withheld from school. So I thought, life would be hard moving forward. But once I realized, okay, if you put in the work and you have relationships and you find those people that are willing to give you an opportunity and you work your ass off, everything in life works out. So I've never been held back from it. But I will say this, the past 5 years is probably it's been the most impactful, amazing time of my life. And that's been the years where I really owned it. Before then, I kind of like swept it under the rug. I did some counseling, so okay. But I kind of swept
I'm in counseling, I get it.
But I kind of swept all of that trauma and that experience underneath the rug as if it didn't exist and it wasn't part of who I was. And I went on in life as if that was the case. So I never spoke about it. I was kind of ashamed and embarrassed about it. And I never spoke about it. So and then I met a person that I shared a lot with, and he ended up saying, actually, this makes you even more amazing. He goes, if you could learn to take ownership of it and use it to empower yourself and help other people realize too, like, hey, we all have a story. It's really what's your superpower. Once you learn to actually use it, your story is really what opens up doors and makes you unique. And when you learn to own it and share it and help other people realize they should be doing the same,
Wow.
It builds stronger relationships. Doors open up. You are no longer being inauthentic with yourself, which is a great feeling too. And so
I love that you said that you had met someone who told you to take ownership and that you listened, because it sounds to me from what you were saying that it had ownership of you for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And you took it back and you said, oh no, bitch.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell you a really cool story just because it stands out in my mind. It wasn't too long after that person had told me to take ownership of it and don't hide it. And I thought, okay, and I made the promise to myself that from that day on, I wasn't going to lie about who I was or what my experiences were, especially not to impress anybody else, right? So I went on this listing appointment, and it was a luxury listing up in Palos Verdes. And this seller, I remember meeting with him, and he had like USC plaques, and he was a very accomplished, educated man. And through conversations and me trying to get the listing, he was like, so, where did you go to college? And I took a deep breath and I was like, I never went to college. And he goes, oh, okay. And he goes, well, where'd you graduate high school? I go, that didn't happen either. And I wasn't elaborating, but I wasn't lying. So it was so hard to actually say the truth, thinking, fuck, I'm not going to get this $3 million listing, right? Because I don't have anything to relate to with this guy.
Right.
And he was like, really? Okay. And he goes, well, that's intriguing. He goes, well, where'd you grow up? And I go, I go, sounds like you're going to need my life story. I go, because these questions are not going to go the way you want. And he started laughing. And through that, I ended up telling just little tad bits. And he goes, it's heaven sent that you're here. He goes, I have to tell you, he goes, the last person that listed my home, because it was an expired, he goes, was a mega agent. I thought her name would sell it. He goes, but she had no substance. He goes, she had nothing behind her as far as, he goes, depth. And he goes, and I said the next person I'd work with would have depth and substance to them. And he goes, and your story alone, he goes, is inspiring. He goes, this is crazy. And he goes, where do I sign? And then on top of that, he was like, well, how many homes have you sold right here in the past year? I was like, 0.
Yeah,
Really honest.
And you're a true story right there. When we all started, remember, I remember, saying, look, I haven't sold a house, but guess what? I'm going to kick ass. You're the only one I care about. You're all I'm going to do. I'm going to fight for you.
Yeah.
That's what you've been
You can
doing.
spin it either way, right? Anything.
Totally.
The other agent can go, they have no experience, they don't know what they're doing. And then that person go, well, I'm hungry. You've got all my attention. I have to sell this home because I have to eat. Like this is a must.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking of getting into real estate?
Ooh, I would say, if you don't have that fire underneath you and you've never had to accomplish anything on your own, I think you're really going to struggle. I think the main thing is to realize the business model that you're getting into is a lead generation business. You have to show up like it's a business. In other words, even though you're working for yourself, you kind of have to realize, because a lot of people don't have that self-discipline, that you still have to treat it like a business. So you should have hours 9 to 5, not sleeping until 10, not taking 4-hour lunch breaks, that kind of stuff. So treat it like a business. And, and I think I don't know what that
9 to 5, you're generous. I was working at 10 o'clock last night.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean, though. I mean, it's
Totally.
sometimes
You gotta put the
sometimes
hours in.
off. Yeah, but you have to treat it like a business. The cool thing is you can always fire yourself,
That's
rehire.
right. If you don't want to work nights and weekends, don't get into the business. That's what I say.
I would have to disagree with that. Let me challenge you to that, Brad.
Okay.
I believe that a lot of agents are told when you're starting, you have to start off as a buyer's agent. It's the quickest, easiest way to get escrows. You have no experience with the seller, focus on buyers. Completely wrong. You should be focusing on sellers. The buyers come to you anyways. But when you have listings, you get to control your time. So for me,
no, what I mean though is if someone's if your seller is calling you at 9 o'clock at night, you're gonna pick up the phone. I mean, I am.
yeah. It's a $30,000 check maybe,
and
right?
If I get an offer like I did last night at 8 o'clock at night, here's what I think, Christy. I say, okay, Brad, you work for yourself. You can do this in the morning, or you can upload it to CIR tonight, start your counter offer, get it going, send it over to your client. It takes 20 minutes. If he's up, great, he'll sign it. If not, and it saves me, so then I'm fresh for the morning. Like I like that. So when I say you got to work nights and weekends, you're going to get to a point in your life where if you're a busy agent, it's better to do it right then and there than put it off till tomorrow. Now, of course, if I want to go out, of course, if I want to go out and party or go with my wife somewhere or do whatever, I can do it. But
right. The luxury of having the flexibility is great too. But I think too that whenever you are an entrepreneur and you enjoy what you're doing, even though we have hard days, right? I think you do become obsessed with it. So I would rather do it at 10 o'clock at night, have my morning routine still down. So
that's right. I got to go to the gym.
Yep. So I think it's a matter of just being obsessed and loving what we do and the everything about it, right? The negotiations, the wins, the losses, everything. Then you do end up putting in those hours because it's your business, it's your life.
And you love it.
There's no on and off switch.
And I'm a control freak, by the way. So
I'm glad you can acknowledge that.
No, I'm big time. So, okay, Christy, I got a good one for you. You ready?
I am.
So, if you were Marty from Back to the Future and you had to get in your DeLorean, fly back and tell young Christy, if you had to go back when you were being exploited and doing all that and give young Christy some advice, what kind of advice would you give young Christy?
Oh my God.
Looking at yourself.
Yeah. I would have to remind myself that what you go through doesn't affect your self-worth or your value. So there's so many young kids that go through crazy things and it really makes them look at themselves differently. Yeah. So I would think that I learned it eventually, but I would go back and tell myself from a very young age that, what you're going through, what's happened to you, what is happening doesn't affect your value and really hang on to that. Because I think it took me a long time to realize that.
That's wonderful. And just give yourself a hug, maybe, right?
Yeah, for sure.
My daughter is really, she's 15 and a half, really a big feminist, but very much into mental health.
Yeah.
And supporting women in general. So she just wrote a book and she published it, and it's going to be selling on Amazon June 15th. If you want to read it, it's called.
Yes, please let me know. Yeah.
It's called Relatable. and it's to empower women. And she shares her own personal struggles with mental health. Even though she has a good family, she's grown up well, she's, dealt with a lot of issues. And she's like, Dad, you're gonna cry when you read it because I'm really raw. And I'm like, good for you.
I love that. I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I want to get into speaking is to affect that kind of that younger core group, that I want to say ages probably 10 to 18 or 20. And when you share and you're vulnerable, it actually lets their guards down, and everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
And it does, you can get through to their mindset and the way they look at themselves, the way they've thought things through. So I think that's amazing that your daughter's doing that. That's
I'm pretty shocked. She's both of my daughters are incredible, but I think of you and what you went through, and I applaud you. And I think your story is amazing, and you are obviously just an extremely intelligent, wonderful person.
Thank you.
And I really,
I got the school of hard knocks.
Hey, you know what? It's a hard knocks life.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that you took the world, what they gave you, and you said, guess what? I'm going to kick your ass.
Right.
And you know what? Good for you.
It's really taking ownership of your life. The thing is, truly, no matter what your experience is and what you've gone through, what you do have or don't have, what you want to become and what you want, you can do it. It's that simple. It's a choice. And I think we overcomplicate it.
Just hearing your story, I mean, I could see why you get those listings. I mean, it makes someone want to be around you because you are really a special person.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
What advice could you give a seller that's getting ready to sell their home? Even if it's not with you, with anyone, what advice could you give a seller?
Jesus, they're in a great time to sell where I am, at least I think in most places in the country. The advice that I would give is be ready for things that don't make sense. I mean, we're getting people that are releasing all contingencies and offering way above appraisal and releasing appraisal and things just don't make sense. But the advice I would give is that if you're considering selling I would say sell now versus 3 years from now. And you're better off selling, capitalizing on the equity, holding on to it, even if you have to rent somewhere, and then buying whenever it's smart to buy. But if you don't plan on staying in your home for the next 5-10 years, then you should sell now. That's my advice to sellers.
And what advice could you give a buyer who is ready to buy and they're looking to buy their first home in this crazy market?
I would, it's funny because every buyer I know, I say, unless you have to buy, don't buy. Right. Because it doesn't make sense. You're literally like giving your firstborn to get a property. So unless you plan on staying in that home for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and you have to buy, then don't buy. That's my suggestion. And it's just because I would never advise my clients to pay above appraisal. I would never, it doesn't make sense, but people get emotional about this stuff and you really shouldn't. And
your advice is to take a deep breath and not to get emotional.
Yeah, and only buy if you have to. Otherwise, you're throwing money. It makes no sense. You're probably going to be upside down on your property, and nobody likes that. So it's not a wise investment unless you have to buy and you're staying in it really long term.
I think you and I, we think a lot alike in the sense. I think we both have been the ones who knock on someone's door and ask to say, "I'm really sorry that the bank sent me here and foreclosed on," and that really changed my life. And I kind of give, I was doing an open house the other day and I had a few couples come in and we were already $135,000 over list price. So I knew they couldn't afford the house. So they weren't even my clients, but their agents did not come with them. So I was sitting with them and I wasn't trying to get their business, but they were asking me questions. And I said, you seem like a really great couple. In my opinion, I wouldn't buy right now. I said, if you can hold off for a year, even with whatever you spend in rent, I think you're going to do so much better. And they go, well, we have 800 FICO scores and we feel like losers because we're not getting anything. And I said, and if you were hanging out with people that made you feel like losers, would you continue to hang out with them? And they go, no. And I go, then why are you continually coming to open houses and putting yourself through this when you don't need to?
Right. 100%.
And they went, whoa, thank you for being so honest with us. And I said, no problem. Listen, I make a great living. I can afford to tell you the truth.
Right. And not having that commission breath. I think going back to ethics and remembering to give just true advice and educating people. Yeah, it's like it's never about the money. The money comes anyways when you're doing the right thing. And that's actually what I loved about the old market too, was actually helping people stay in their homes sometimes. And
Yeah, we used to do loan mods for people. I used to set them up with companies to do loan mods, and
that gratification of helping somebody is priceless, and it
just
always
realizing you're
comes back
dealing
to
with a
other
human
things.
being. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, definitely. Christy, you are amazing. How could a buyer, a seller, what about an agent that maybe wants to come work for you? How can they get a hold of the wonderful Christy Carrillo? You spell
I'm
it
not that
Carrillo?
hard to find. I'm not that hard to find.
Pronounce your last name, by the way. Is it Carrillo?
You know, it's my, I'm divorced now, but it was my married last name. So I say Carrillo, but I'm sure it's Carrillo.
Okay.
I pronounce it the Caucasian way.
What do I know? What do I know? So, okay.
But
Good.
I say Carrillo. I say it the right way because it just
Carrillo,
you can't roll the
Carrillo.
R's.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So how could someone get a hold of you if they wanted to come to work for you, with you, they want to sell their house, they want to buy their house, they want you for a speaking engagement? How could they get a hold of you?
Call me or text me either way. 310-707-5697. I answer.
All right, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been wonderful having you here today.
Thank you.
And to all of my listeners, remember, go to ATREpodcast.com and you can sign up for my free 30-minute coaching session and evaluation where I want to see you thrive, not survive.
Yes.
To help you gain and see your own authenticity. It's really important. And I am now on TikTok as well I succumbed and I'm doing some fun stuff. So you can go to @Brad Roth Realtor on TikTok and Instagram. You can also find me at ATRE Podcast on Instagram. But if you want to laugh a little and you want to learn a lot, go to TikTok and go to @Brad Roth Realtor.
I'm going to follow you. I haven't posted anything on TikTok, but I follow people.
Oh, please follow me. I think you'll enjoy it, and I'd love to see you. And
Awesome.
Christy, thank you so much. You have been absolutely amazing. I wish you so much success, and I truly am excited to hopefully see a movie with you.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of your life story. It sounds fascinating. So
the details in between are insane, but yes.
All right, guys, and remember, like my dad always said, have an attitude of gratitude. And that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, many of my podcast listeners have become my coaching clients. If you'd like to be a coaching client, go to my website at www.atrepodcast.com and sign up for your free 30-minute coaching evaluation at www.atrepodcast.com. And as my dad would always say, have an attitude of gratitude.